I'm growing a Robinhood account from $0 all the way to 1 million and showing you every step of the way how I get there. Today in the account, we did close at $17,918. We were up over $2,000 on the day. And on the week, almost 5K, on the month, almost 10K. So we are starting to make some strides here. I'm going to give you a rundown of all the positions we're currently holding and then get into some specific stocks that I think are going to make a strong push over the next couple weeks or even days. Hopefully we can get up to that $25,000 mark in the account, because it's really important as a trader to have the proper bankroll so then you can size into positions correctly. And if you take on some losses, you can make some adjustments there. And that's really just part of having the right system in place. But looking at the current positions, we do have like some smaller bets, but really we are mostly in unity calls. And I've been taking a lot of profit off the side and rolling it into other positions. We've probably made $5,000 to $6,000, and I've taken around $3,000 to $3.5K out of this position. I do have some really far out the money debit spreads where if we do get a tweet from Roaring Kitty, then this stock could potentially push over $50. I think it could even hit $65, even potentially $100. Not saying that you should just risk all of your money into Unity software, but there is a lot of potential for a gamma squeeze, which is similar to what happened last year with GameStop when it went from $10 to $65. And I think if Roaring Kitty does tweet, we could see a massive move to the upside. So I am still holding some positions and then looking at some shorter dates where if it does run and I can catch that tweet, then I'm going to profit greatly on these positions, right? It's like $7 for a one credit or a one strike wide debit spread. And that will pay me $100 on a $7 risk if it hits. So you can kind of size into positions with minimal risk, and it's kind of like a YOLO play. It's either going to go to zero, I'm going to lose that money, or I'm going to make $100, which is like over a 10x on my money. So Unity software, that's a big one. I was talking about Grab and Neo for many, many months. Grab is still, in my mind, a really bullish position. I do think that this is going to continue much higher. If you look at it on the 1 year chart, this thing just looks so bullish. You can even see the trend line here. It's starting to break out above. It actually just broke out today. I've been adding a lot of shares, leaps, just throwing everything at this stock because I do think it's going to push to $6, $7. It could even go to $10 plus by the end of next year, just depending on what happens. But very sound company, strong cash flow, cash position, positive cash flow. It's in Southeast Asia and it's in a really good growing market. So I think there's a lot of potential here, but I'm a little trouble on these 5.5 calls, only 10 sells. I have 400 shares, and then I have a ton of money in long dated leap call contracts. So I'm hoping that Grab can make that breakout and we'll be able to build on this position in the account. And then Neo, the other one, this one came back from the dead. There's like an inflection point here. It's either make or break for the company to see if they can turn cash flow positive. We do have a share position. It's relatively small, 2K. And then I've also have some leaps as well. So very similar strategy. We want Grab and Neo to push to the upside over the next couple months, hopefully well before this January 2026 expiration date. And then I can take profit on those and start to maybe like wheel the stock a bit more. If I do believe in the long term, I'll probably do it more so with Grab. Neo actually has decent premiums, so I could still do it with Neo, but I might close out of this position entirely, just depending on what happens on earnings in Q3 and Q4. So that's really important. Then Apple and Tesla. I mean, I'm bullish the market. Apple's lagging behind all the others. It is in an uptrend. It broke the downtrend. I do think at some point they'll figure out how to put AI into Siri. I don't know what's taking them so long, but I do think that Apple will have that stronger move and break out to the upside. I mean, if you just look at it on the 1 year chart, it hasn't recovered. It certainly can push to 240 to 260 again, depending on how earnings go at the end of the month. So I'm really looking for that. But playing some shorter dates here, just really hoping that it can break out to the upside, playing a lot of spreads as well, because I don't have the largest account, right? So I have to use different types of strategies to lower my total capital at risk on these positions. And then Disney, these are like some smaller plays. I think Disney's going to run up to around 124 to 125. And then Webull, really bullish there. And then SMCI, this is semiconductors. I think that, the chips, semis, all those are going to continue to rally to the upside over the next year. I'm really bullish on AI and everything that comes with it. But that's the account today. If you aren't already, I do post all of these positions in the Discord, which I will link in the description. So you can join here and I show you all of my entries and exits. Same thing with my main portfolio. I do also trade a larger portfolio. This is really the thing that I'm showing you now is just the Robinhood Challenge account. We have a pretty decent size amount of people in here and a lot of people are talking. So you can get a lot of value. People are posting their gains, things like that. So make sure you guys join that. But let's just hop right into the charts here. This is going to be a little bit of a longer video, so stick with me. But looking at the S&P 500, or remove all these lines that I look at, you can see that, it's fully recovered this dip like I knew that it would, because it's pretty much impossible for the market to sustain this type of a drawdown without having a reversal. So you had this really strong V-shaped recovery, and now you're seeing us push to all-time highs, right? Like 613 was the previous high. We are now at 628, and even just yesterday we had the news about like Trump firing Jerome Powell. That caused a really large sell-off, and it was like so obvious that once this started to push higher again and got over important trend line, which you can see here, once it got back over this 621.50 level, it was like off to the races at that point, because bears are using up all of their ammo. Bulls started to step in. Trump walked back the firing of Jay Powell, and then you have this really strong reversal to the upside, and now we're trying to break out above this upper trend line to the upside. So really bullish for this week, surprisingly, considering it's option expiration week. But let's get into really the watch list of all the things that we're looking at. So Unity Software had a Jefferies upgrade on Wednesday morning at $35 a share. The stock ran up to about $34. And on the longer term chart, I was looking at this upper trend line, and we actually blew right through it. You can also see that there's a low volume node here as well as here, and that's where I identified those resistance levels, because oftentimes price likes to react out of low volume areas where people haven't done as much business. And so we pushed through 31.35. I took some profit. We got all the way up through here. So like I was taking profit at a higher level, so that was great. And then 35.58, that was my second profit taking level. Took some profit, actually took a lot here today. And then as long as we hold this 35.38 level or 58 level, we can actually reload into this position, because this is actually considered a breakout of a broadening wedge, which is highly unusual in my opinion. But seeing this start to break out and hold this level as support means that we can certainly push up to this 43.52 level. And what's really interesting about Unity right now is obviously the options chain is fully loaded. These are the highest open interest options. But over the last couple of weeks, we've seen unusual option activity. And I've been posting about it not only on Twitter, but also in the Discord, showing you guys that there was an aggressive call buyer on the 26 strike, and they started to roll their positions. They were buying weekly 26 calls. I think it was like over 800 or 900K. Then the stock went up. People started to follow those positions. The stock went up, and then they rolled them higher on the same expiration, which is even more aggressive. So they like sold the 26s and bought the 29s. Then they got the 30s. Then they got the 35s. And then there's like a lot of interest now on $45 calls for July 25th. And all of those levels were hit. 26, 30, 35. Now we're at like 38, 39. Now we're seeing all this interest in 40 and 45 calls. So it's certainly possible that Unity can keep squeezing up to that $45 level. And it doesn't, I mean, I guess it helps that I believe Roaring Kitty, the GameStop, Keith Gill, is in these 30 calls, which is now I think at like over $10 a piece, and there's 82 million open interest. So you do the math on that. And this is like holding the line, if you will. So it's hard for like Unity to sell. And there's been a lot of aggressive put selling as well, like this 25p, 37p, 15p. I bet most of these are all sell to open. So the whole options chain is bullish, and that's really important because price can certainly keep squeezing more and more to the upside. And then, so that's really what I'm looking for is Unity. Hold this 35.58 level. We could certainly squeeze to 43. If Roaring Kitty does tweet, the stock could push up to 65 or more. There's a ton of volume on the 65 calls for January. So people are loading higher and more aggressively up the options chain. And that really just creates like a ladder, right? As price keeps going higher and higher, option dealers are hedging against the position more and more. They have earnings coming up, so that's really important on August 12th. I think most of this move can actually play out before earnings. I don't know if I want to hold through earnings because I don't believe that this move is justified for any sort of significant change in the underlying fundamentals of the company. But nonetheless, this is a real interesting squeeze threat. There's not a lot of volume. You see this volume profile, this big area of volume that people have traded the stock. If it starts to push over $48, $50, there's not a lot of volume here. And that means that price will move quickly in this area. And that means that it could certainly squeeze all the way to $100 if it starts launching up through this low volume area. So yeah, Unity Software, this stock is kind of what happened last year with GameStop. You know, Roaring Kitty, the stock was running. I was actually in this position. I've flagged it at $10. I was buying shares and leaps on this company, and once it broke out on on Sunday, May 12th is when he actually tweeted. So like the price was moving higher, and we saw like all this unusual option activity, and then Roaring Kitty started tweeting. He tweeted on that Sunday. The stock rallied 362% pre-market and 271% when it opened. And it really only died on this move because AMC diluted, and then all the apes got afraid, and that really killed the momentum on the stock. So that's something to be aware of, is that Unity might and most likely will at some point dilute shareholders because their stock has gone up so much, and it's just basically free money for the company. So they're going to do that at some point. So be very mindful of that. If Roaring Kitty does tweet, the move is going to be short-lived. Like it'll take like less than a week for it to play out. So you don't want to get hooked up in the noise. You don't want to be buying at $65, $70 and holding it overnight. You want to get out of that position, right? You want to be in profit-taking mode. You enter when it makes sense before the move plays out, or even catch it when it broke out of this other downtrend. And then you just are in profit-taking mode, and you have all these different levels, and you sell into strength. That's how you stay a consistent trader. Otherwise, you're just gambling. So that's it for Unity Software. We'll see where this one goes. We're going to stay tuned on that. But just quickly, I'm going to run through a few of these other ones because these are also really good plays, especially if the market can sustain this uptrend. If there's like a big rejection in the market, some other news happens. Obviously, we got FOMC on Wednesday. Like it could kill the momentum on a lot of these smaller tech company or like meme stocks that are running now. Like almost everything is moving, even cryptocurrency. But nonetheless, Zeta did break out over this 14 level. It actually came back down, held this previous gap, and is starting to bounce from that level. If we can get over 16, there's a really strong move up to this 1965 level, which is that low volume node. So I'm really expecting to see this move play out. You've seen this really large amount of volume come in back in June. This is the retest, and now you're seeing the volume starting to pick up again. So this is all a healthy sign for a move higher to $20. And then, of course, they do have earnings at the end of this month. So really bullish on Zeta. They've actually, they're a small 3.75 billion market cap. They're growing at like a healthy amount, I think over 35%. Yeah, 35, 49, 42%. This is an AI marketing platform. They are growing fairly well. They have a decent cash position. I do think that this stock can, it's traded at $38 before. It could certainly start to trade up towards this like 22 to 24 level. I'd be looking at, if you're playing longer dates, to be wary of this trend line, but this is technically a bullish trend line. So if it can get through that, it can start pushing even higher and start testing some of these other levels up in that 30 range. So Zeta, I'm bullish on. AMD, this one, we already played this whole move out. It's starting to fill this gap. It can reject around like 167, probably chop out for a little bit. If it holds 150, holds this bull gap here. These are all just continuation gaps. Gap, 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 another gap here. I just haven't drawn it on the chart. As long as it can continue higher, there's a lot of momentum here. It can certainly start pushing up towards 187, 174, 213. It could even push to all-time highs. I do think at some point AMD will be a $1 trillion company in the next probably 2 to 3 years. So look out for AMD. SMCI, semiconductor, same kind of vibe here. You got the breakout. You got the breakout of this green trend line. It bull flagged. It's starting to push through. Trying to get some of this get through this lower volume shelf. 59 is a first profit taking level. Hopefully it can push right through here into this lower volume node. And then that between 64 to 69, that's like my extended range. I'm going to take profit at all of these levels, but I don't have a lot of time. So I'm really trying to see this move play out before earnings. That's what I'm looking for, right? A lot of these tech companies are starting to make a move right before earnings. Apple's another one. I keep talking about this when I'm banging the desk on it. I think it's going to come back up and retest this higher trend line at some point. It broke out this downtrend. It's consolidating in this pattern. It's more likely than not, probably 70. I would say this is probably more of like a 90% probability that it's going to push to 214, start to fill into this previous bear gap and head right towards that 120 or 223 level. Usually when you have like an intersection of trend lines, sometimes that will act as like a magnet. So if we do start to break out by Tuesday, the 29th of July, which is 2 days before earnings, I believe that we will come up and get close to that 220 to 223 level. So that's how I'm playing Apple stock. Disney, this is kind of a simple one. Broke out of this other downtrend, retested. Sometimes waiting and buying the retest is actually a more effective strategy. It's, I would say, maybe even better than playing the initial breakout, because people take profit and then it comes back down and retests. And that's when you want to be buying, as long as it holds that level. And now that it's pushed to the upside, it came back down, had another retest at this support line. This is a large bottoming pattern. You see all the volume down here. It's trying to get through this low volume shelf. I'm hoping price can squeeze through here to around 128 to 129. So that's what I'm looking at on Disney. Obviously, Morrow, we played this one. We sold around here on this breakout. Probably should have got back into crypto, just with how aggressive Bitcoin broke out. I was playing futures instead, but nonetheless, I do think Bitcoin will like go over 125. Ethereum, I called like 3,300 to 3,400. It's at 3,600 now. It could certainly break out and keep going as well. Neo broke out of this bull flag as well, pushing through really strong, trying to get through some of these gaps here. This is where that low volume shelf is. I think it can definitely get back into that 475 to 515 range over the next couple weeks. There was someone who bought 700K in, I think it was $5 calls for next week. So really bullish overall. There's like over 110,000 call contracts bought. So yeah, I definitely see Neo trying to push back up to this towards that 515 range. Webull IPO'd, had the lockup period ended. It sold off and it's now trying to break out, right? So we had a SEPO, which is just, they offered like I think it was $1 billion in standard equity purchase agreement. And that is somewhat dilutive, but not immediately. And so it sold off. That killed this momentum that was playing out. We kind of got hooked into this a little bit. I think we bought around here. Thankfully, this move today, we were able to recover on those 13 calls for July 18th. So we just got out in time on this move, but we do have some other dates as well. And actually, we can take a look at Webull, the overnight trading. You can see that it's up to $15.26. So it's up 12% on the day, 6% overnight. And then NEO doesn't look like it's doing anything. BABA, Tesla, market's rallying overnight. So you're seeing some green there as well. I think Unity is not, Unity's not really doing much. So we'll see how that one opens tomorrow. And then Zeta, that one's starting to get picked up on social media. So you're starting to see a bit bullish activity overnight. I do think Zeta can keep going. Then BABA, we bought back into this one. It broke out of this bull flag. Sorry, I got like a light show going on here with all these lines, but you can see a pretty clear flag was playing out, and it had this gap up over a previous gap. So that was pretty bullish. I did buy into some call contracts, 120 calls for September in my main portfolio. I probably should have scaled in more, but I thought maybe it would come back down a little bit. But there was some news with NVIDIA and sending H20 chips to China. And so China has been rallying as well, and that's helping my BABA and my NEO stock. And I think Grab as well, adjacent, even though it's not in China. But really what we're looking to see here is a break of this longer term trend line. If we can get over this 119.87 level, which has been a pretty key level, you can see that's like a low volume area in this larger volume shelf. And really we're trying to get over that 119 level so then we can push to 130 and then even potentially get up over this 143 level again, because there is a bear gap that is sitting there. I do think at some point BABA is going to get through that gap. So I do think it's a long-term play if you're looking to buy just shares of the underlying or playing leaps, but it's pretty expensive. So really up to you, but nonetheless, I do think we will fill this gap at some point and start trying to push through, get into this higher volume area. We'll probably chop around there for a while and then hopefully continue to push to the upside, because BABA is a good company. I think China will resolve a lot of the issues. I think investors are looking at Alibaba. There was a lot of like institutional buying back in Q4 of 2024. So yeah, China's definitely not a bad play. This was like the move where everyone was like buying Chinese stocks, but Hood, just every day it's green. What else is new? It'd probably go to like 150 or something like that. Not in this stock personally. I sold out of it a lot sooner than I probably should have. Tesla's got earnings coming up. Just looking at the chart overall, this is bullish price action. It does have earnings, so anything can happen. It just recently broke out of this bull flag. We entered into some calls around this 303 to 310 level. It reclaimed this trend into this over this low volume shelf, reclaimed this uptrend that you're seeing here. Sorry, there's a lot of lines, so I'm trying to point this out to you so it makes sense. But it got through this uptrend. There's a longer term uptrend that was previously that it broke out over, and we played this move to the upside to 360. But now that we're actually like sandwiched between these two lines, right? We're sandwiched between the green line and the uptrend. So there's two uptrends that we reclaimed one. We're trying to get back over the previous one. Depending on earnings go, I do think we could definitely push to the upside here, but you know, earnings is a coin flip. It could certainly sell back down to 295. But nonetheless, this is bullish activity. Earnings are not until Wednesday. I'll probably get out of this position before earnings. But I'm really liking this move. If we can get over 322 to 333, and then even potentially to 464, how things go after earnings, if it does break over this upper trend line, that will be a bullish confirmation. That'll be a breakout. We'll start to play this to 365. And because it's rejected in this area twice now before, it's more than likely that we'll start to push up towards 372 and start trying to test some of these other resistance levels above 372. So bullish on Tesla. Just got to get through earnings on a lot of these stocks and then kind of reposition and go from there. But usually I don't like holding through earnings just because there's a lot of risk involved. And then I'll leave you with my last pick. I haven't entered into this position yet. I got to do some more research, but Duolingo, it's like the language education app. Everyone's used it before, but they are expanding into other things, implementing AI. They could definitely make a strong run in the future. It's only 16 billion market cap. It does trade at $362, so it's a bit expensive. I wish it was a lower price stock because it'd be much easier to wheel it. But you can see that it has these gaps that formed, and it's just looking at the gaps and nothing else. You can see that price has gapped up. This was on the previous earnings, and then it's starting to drift much lower. It's retracing this whole move into this gap. It can hold this 361 level and bounce from here, certainly. But really what I'm looking for is it to fill this gap completely and start loading into shares or even longer dated call options around 335. But I do have to do a bit more research on the stock. But nonetheless, this is the support level that I'd be looking at. Maybe even selling some puts below here and then seeing if we get assigned. That's probably a better strategy to get it even cheaper entry, just selling like weekly or bi-weekly or even monthly puts once it gets down to that 336 level. So that's what I'll be looking at for Duolingo. They do have earnings coming up, so I might just wait and see how that goes. Hopefully it does poorly and the stock sells. That'd be great because I can just buy shares for cheaper. So that's pretty much it for this video. I know I covered a lot. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm going to keep pumping out content. Make sure you subscribe, like, do all the things. And I'll see you in the next video, guys. Peace.